let's talk about now the CSS syntax. As you can see here, we have in this XHTML page one header which states the CSS and the acronym for it, which is cascading style sheet, and below we have a paragraph with text. Now the color of the header, which in our case is heading 1, going back and edit the source, I'm going to see that I have the H1 element and then the P element that contains the text. Now, as I said, the H1 element is having already applied CSS style, and actually makes some kind of a blue navy like color. Okay, now if I am going to go back to my open files in edit mode, you'll see that I also have the style.css opened. If you do not really have it open yet, you can go back to folder, right click and edit with Notepad. It's not really necessary, but if you like, you can open it and you can follow along. And in this CSS file, I've stated that my H1 element would have a color property and the value would be somewhat like blue navy. In this case, the color I didn't state it as a simple blue navy like. I've just used an hexadecimal core type code, which it would be something that we'll talk about later on colors in XHTML and CSS, and we'll see then how we're going to treat them. Now, if you have already opened the CSS underscore syntax.png, you can see here that we have, like we did also previously with the XHTML syntax, we have the scheme for the CSS syntax, and this is the first thing that we are going to analyze. Okay, I'm just going to scroll down so we can see better. Now, the first thing would be the selector, and that would be in my case the H1. Well, actually the selector is the one component that it's actually targeting the element for which I'm going to apply the style. The selector, as we'll see later on, can be a specific selector. Like in this case, I'm just saying please target the H1 header and apply the code only for the H1 header, or it can be generic, and it would look like something like this. And in this case it would be applying for everything in my page. As I said, there is something that we are going to talk later on, but for now our selector is a specific one. So this way we're going to understand a little bit better how the CSS actually works. So the H1 would be the selector. Then we have curly left bracket that will open the value and properties. Actually will contain the value and properties, because we have a starting curly left bracket right after the selector, and we have an ending curly right bracket at the end of the entire declaration. So between these two curly brackets we will have the declaration of the properties and values. And now the property would be this one. In our case it's color. Now the properties can be the font weight, which will state it will be bold or regular or light. It can be background color, it's another property. It can be a font face, so it can define the font face like Arial or Times New Roman, or any kind of other face font that we really like to. It can be also a border, or there are so many things that we can do and define as a property. So just remember, for now, the color would be the property of the declaration. Then the property is having right after that colon, which the colon separates the property from the value of the property. So in my case, the hexadecimal color number, which, as I said, it's resembling like something like blue, navy, a little bit towards purple. It's the value of the color. For instance, I'm just going to go back a little bit here and copy paste, and I could say in my case h2 and define, let's say, another property like font weight. Okay, we have a property, and then the value would be bold in my case. Okay, so this is the way you're going to work with CSS. These are the values. I'm sorry, the the property, and those are the values. And now, right after the value, we have to end this first row declaration, which is ended with a semicolon, and the entire declaration for the selector is contained by these curly braces. So we have one selector, so we know for which elements are going to set the properties and the values. Then we open and close with curly right bracelet and curly left bracelet, and between these two we state the property, then the colon between the property and the value, and right after that we ended up with semicolon, and make sure that all these four components, the property, the colon, the value, and the semicolon, are contained by the curly bracelets. Now if we are going to take a look back on our code here, you're going to see that we have the same statement. So in our case we have the selector, for which we targeted the entire style, which is h1. Then I have the curly bracelet, which opens and ends the entire declaration, and then I have the property, which is the color, then the the column which separates the property from the value, and of course then we have the value, and then we have the semicolon, which ends up the value. Well, the reason for which we have the semicolon is that we may have just first like this, we may have then right here font weight, another property, right, and colon, and then we can say bold. Let's save it and go back and refresh and see what happens. Well, in my case it doesn't really actually happen anything, because my header is already treated as large, heavy type of bold. As you remember, the H1 is the most important heading, and it usually tends to be also bold. But just to make a point here, I'm just going to switch from font weight to, let's say, font size, okay, because we can control that and we delete the bold. And for the font size property, we can state the size. Let's do it first in pixels. Okay, save it, go back and refresh, and there you go. Now see, we changed the property there. Now you probably at this point ask yourself, okay, we're pretty much learning about CSS, looks nice indeed, but how exactly this did you said it will help us and make our life easier? Well, actually it does. Now take a look at this. Let's go first to our code, okay, here, and add a few things in the XHTML. Let's say I'm having a secondary header, h2, and I'll say subtitle h2, and I want for this subtitle to have a different color. Normally, in the old days, of course, you would have used something like font color, and let's say orange, and contain again within a font. This is an element font. This was the way that in the old days you could have changed some properties for the content itself. I'm just going to save it, go back and refresh, and now it's changed to orange, okay? Now let's go back and multiply this a couple of times so you can see, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have it 5 times. Save it, go back and refresh again. Okay, so now we have a couple of titles here, right? And they're all orange. And now after a while your boss come to you and say, look George, I just want to change all the subtitles from orange to green, and because you know you have 1000 pages, you go, oh my god, this is insane. Are you serious? It will take awful lot of time. And of course it will take a lot of time if you have approached the properties for the subtitle in this way. Luckily for us, there is CSS to our help, okay? So let's delete first the things we just add. Let's get rid of this totally ugly and nothing used any longer with our deprecated element and properties with everything. Just leave it like this. Go back and refresh. Okay, now let's duplicate again the content. So we have again 5 times. And now you'll say, this is easy, this is easy. So I'm going back to my declaration. I'll see where is my property in value. So I'll change the value from orange to green. Okay, save it, go back and refresh. Now imagine doing this, having the power to actually change the style for 1000 pages just like that. You change it in one place and you're done with it. You can move on to your next stuff. So now see, this is the reason for which it's always best to rely on CSS in these kind of things. Basically separating the properties and the values for the content, basically for the style of the content, from the content itself.